Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In this video we are going to demonstrate Spring MVC Rest project. This project is implementation for REST services using Spring MVC framework. We are using Muffin, so here in POM file you can find the Spring MVC dependency and then Servlet API dependency and provide scope, as we are going to run this application inside serverless container. Also we are using Jackson for parsing and generating JSON format, and using JUnit for unit test and integration test. Here adding some plugin for compiling and for generating WAR. This one we mentioned here that web.xml is not mandatory, and here we are specifying two plugins for unit testing, which is excluding integration folder, and integration testing, which is including integration folder. Finally, here we are adding one profile, which is local, as we this one to be run on our local machine. We are using Jetty as embedded application server, and we link its start with pre-integration test and stop with post-integration test. Let's check the configuration we have. Here the main configuration file. We are using one class of Spring Web Framework and override three methods here. This one for making root context in case that you have multiple REST configuration and you need something common between them. You can configure it here like data source or something like this. And here we are adding the server configuration, which we have only one REST configuration, and map it to /. Let's go to REST configuration. In REST configuration you can see that we're using component scan, as we are going to scan two packages, service package and controller package, and here enable web MVC to enable using request mapping and controller annotation inside controller classes. Let's first check the service we have. We here using in-memory service to make the example simple as much as we can. We using a map as a storage or model in this case, and sequence, and then you can find here the four crude methods: get, delete, update, and add. Just storing or updating or deleting or retrieving values from this store. Our model is very simple. It's called item, have ID, name and number. And in controller here you can find that we are using REST controller from Spring 4. Actually this annotation is just the same as any other controller of MVC, but it's adding with this annotation we can remove another annotation with each method. It's called response body, so it's detecting the number line of code, and we are mapping this controller with /item. Here you can find auto wiring for our service, and then the four methods which we are going to go in details for REST service. Here this one is get method to retrieve item. Value here we're adding this part of URI to the part of the original class to make it one URI for retrieving value using ID. Okay, and using here we are using request method as a get, and link the ID in the URI to long this reference is long, and then we are returning service.getID. In delete method, we using request method as delete and using the same URI. The return of delete is void, it's not returning anything, so we adding here the HTTP status as no contained. In put or update method, we are using request map as put and using same URI, and response status is no contained as it's also returning void. But here's the difference, that we are using annotation request body, which is making conversion between the JSON part from request body to the item reference, and here we are updating our item. Finally, the add method, which is not getting the ID in the URI, as it will generate new ID, but it's using request body to also convert the JSON from request body to item reference, and we using request HTTP servlet request to get the URI actually to add the to add the ID, the new ID to it, and return it in the header. And sure, it's using request method as post. Here you can find that we calling the service and add our item and get the generated ID. We are using here URI components to generate the URI of the new item and add /item/ID, and then we replace this ID by the ID we got from service, generating the URI and add it to header with attribute name location. Finally, we are returning response entity. It's void, as there is nothing will be returned in the body, but it's getting the header, which is contain location, and HTTP status here is created. Finally, let's check the test cases. First, check unit test. Here in unit test, you can find that we are testing the in-memory service. In initialization, we are creating one item, and then we are going to make 4 test cases. One is for retrieving the item we created in initialization, and be sure it's have the same name. Excuse me. Then we are testing the put or update method. We changing the name of item and then retrieve it to be sure that the name is already updated, and delete and post the same, just unit testing. And then let's see here our integration testing. In integration testing, we are using REST template. REST template is one of classes provided by Spring MVC. It's used to integrate with any REST service, and here you can find the full URI of our item. This one for creating new items, as there is no ID after item. And here we are using this URI to restore our initialization item. Here we initializing one of items, and using post for location, this will return location in our reference. Then we have the 4 crude test cases. Get one will get the item, get for object from the template, and it checks the name, and then put one will update it and check it's updated, and then delete will be deleted, then check is it null, and finally in creating or adding new item, we are going to add new item and check if this item get it in URI here, and then check if this URI returns the same object we already created. Let's go now and run our project. First one here, we are going to run clean install, so it will run all test cases, unit test cases and integration test cases. Let's check. You can find here it's compiling project and it's running project, running test case, unit test case, then starting Jetty to run integration testing, and then running integration test for test cases, and that's closing Jetty, and it's done successfully. If you want to run this project in way to test it manually, you can run in another way here. By this way you are running the Jetty server, and then you can use a browser or any REST client to test this application. Let's run it. Okay, server is started now. Let's use one of REST clients here. We adding the URI for creating a new item, and the method have to be post for creation. The body is contain JSON of the item we want to create it. Let's run it. You can see here that the status is created, and you have location attribute in header with the new sequence and the new URI for the new item. Let's try to create another one. You can find here the sequence is changing. Okay, let's now make retrieving, sorry, this one is get run. Here return is okay, and it's no problem. Body, here you can find the item we created, the first one, and then this should be the second one. Here ID is 2. Let's delete this one. Okay, it's deleted, no contained, and then try to get it again. It's okay, but body is nothing. Let's try to get the first one. Okay, this is the first one. Let's try to update it here, put, and in body we are going to change this to 2 and run. Here no contained, and there is no body as put is returning void. And let's go back again and get and run it. Here you can find this is it's updated already. This project I will upload it on GitHub. Anyone can take it. It's shared with all of you, and I hope to get your comments inshallah on this video on YouTube. And if you need any question or need any help, please feel free to contact me as well. You can find my email in YouTube channel, and see you soon inshallah again.